outgunned and outmanned, but Ukrainian forces are still putting up a valiant fight for their sovereign nation as Russian troops attack from land, sea, and air, threatening to take everything from them, including their lives. Hundreds of thousands of people trying to flee the violence into neighboring countries now as Putin continues his rhetoric, placing nuclear-capable units on high alert, threatening nuclear war as talks between Russia and Ukrainian delegations take place in Belarus. The UN General Assembly meeting today, right now, in an emergency meeting discussing the invasion of Ukraine. We have team coverage from ABC News senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky, who is in Lviv, also ABC's Phil Lipof from Poland. Aaron, let's start with you. What do we know about these talks right now that Russian and Ukrainian delegation in Belarus as you continue to witness the ongoing fighting from where you are?
Those talks took place right on the border between Belarus and Ukraine in a small river town. Each delegation arrived, sat around a long table. The talks lasted for a number of hours, and crucially, there was a second round. So we're not sure that there was any immediate progress, but at least they agreed to keep talking. And we heard a rather conciliatory statement from Ukrainian President Zelensky's office saying that they seemed to go well and that Ukraine had asked for a ceasefire. But just as soon as word came the talks had ended, at least for this round, came another big blast in the suburbs of Kyiv. So the fighting is still raging. Heavy fighting in the eastern city of Kharkiv, but that blast in Kyiv was one of the biggest ones that people had heard since the fighting began. Curfew had already been underway. It started early, anticipating another potentially treacherous night ahead, Kira.
All right, well, Phil, let's talk about where you are. At least 352 civilians now killed. Hundreds more have been wounded. Even as Russia continues to claim that it's not targeting civilians, we have seen the images of terrified families huddling in shelters, basements, even in those metro stations, and the true cost of war visible in the faces of the 500,000 Ukrainians who have fled their homes already, and their jobs, and their country. So you actually spoke with a number of these refugees, even traveled with some of them. You talked to the mayor of Lublin there in Poland, where you are. Tell us what you've heard.
Well, Kira, there is the fighting that is going on. Aaron talks about the talks that happened today. You speak about the UN General Assembly. All of this is going on, and it is all so important. First, that everybody stays safe as they can over in Ukraine, and then the world respond to this. But what we've been covering here in Poland, down on the border yesterday, as you mentioned, about an hour and a half from here, and then today in Lublin, which is an hour and a half from the border. So yesterday, we spoke with refugees who just came across the border. We found one family that we reported on yesterday, and we traveled with them to find shelter. The man you're looking at right here is the mayor of Lublin, Poland. He came outside of City Hall today because on the steps were about 24 refugees, women and children for the most part, who came across the border just after the fighting. Sorry about the siren. Just after the fighting began, and they are holding their children, they are holding their country's flag, and they were just weeping. I spoke to one woman who said her husband told her, get the 2 kids in the car and get across the border to Poland. I have to stay here to fight. Her kids are under the age of 7. Her son is the oldest, and he has been asking nonstop, this woman right here, he's been asking her nonstop, when can we go home? Why is Daddy not here? Why is he fighting with a machine gun? Why does Daddy have a machine gun? And is Daddy going to die? And she is having to answer those questions all while this is a trauma for her. She's trying to keep her kids safe and try to explain to them what's happening in this situation. But kids don't really get it. They just want their family together. And she is just one of, as you mentioned, hundreds of thousands who are pouring across the border with this uncertainty in their minds and in their hearts.
Yep, that's the hardest part as a parent, is trying to explain war to a child. It's a hard subject to just grasp and understand. And Aaron, you know, it's not just Ukrainian soldiers that are fighting for their land right now.
No, there's a whole civil defense force that's really been mobilized here. You know, as Phil mentions, women and children go across the border. The men have been conscripted into the resistance, even if not formally into the military. The president, Zelensky, released convicts with combat experience from prison today so they could join up, take up arms against the Russians. And ordinary citizens have been handed weapons and told to go and fight the Russians. And even if they're not taking weapons formally, they're making them. They're filling bottles with gasoline and rags as Molotov cocktails. They're forming up neighborhood watch patrols in their individual villages. Out of suspicion, Russian saboteurs are going to come and try and disrupt life from within. All of that is happening as the country remains on war footing.
Aaron, Phil, thank you both so much. We'll continue to talk throughout the afternoon.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.